In today's video, we're going to talk about how your position plays a role in your recruiting process. So, to no surprise, the pecking order of getting recruited, it's going to be pitchers first, it's going to be up the middle players second, and then lastly, it's going to be corner players third. And pitching's always going to be king. I mean, it is. It's always going to be king. You can never have enough good pitching, and coaches are always looking for pitchers no matter what. And so usually they're going to go first because they're to college coaches is like you have to have good pitching. You're not going to ever go very far in the tournament without it. Good pitching beats good hitting, and that's coming from somebody who his background is more on the hitting side than anything else. But it's just the truth. And of course, the obvious things like yes, throwing harder, velocity. That's going to open more eyes. But at some point, we have to be able to show that we have command and we can get guys out. That's the name of the game. At the next level, it's like, can you get guys out consistently? And so if you look at like guys who are in the College World Series and playing at a really high level, like they have really good stuff. And not just they have really good stuff, but they can command it as well. The next is going to be up the middle. So up the middle players, and what I consider up the middle, it's shortstop, center field, catcher. You may notice I didn't put second base in there, and that's only because a lot of times if you're a full-time second baseman, unless you're on one of the best teams in the country, that usually means that there's a reason you're not at shortstop, and usually that's just maybe an athleticism, it's a range thing, it's an arm strength thing, and there's nothing wrong with that. But from when we talk about premium positions, being able to play shortstop and being able to play and project that you can play that at the next level, I think that's the thing too. Is like you may look at this video or watch this video and say, oh, okay, awesome. Well, I'm going to force myself into becoming a shortstop. Well, you can't force yourself into projecting as a shortstop at the next level. At some point, you are who you are. I was a corner outfielder. That's what I was. That's where I projected as. So as much as I wanted to be a shortstop or center fielder or whatever, that's where I projected at the next level. So it starts with up the middle, like I said, shortstop. Catchers always important. I have a big video coming on how college coaches evaluate catchers coming soon, and then up the middle too with center field, being that they can have speed and range and be able to play multiple positions. And the other thing I would note too with shortstops is, and this is in general with players playing up the middle, is their bat maybe doesn't have to be as highly sought after as their glove. From a defensive standpoint, especially if you're recruiting a shortstop or a catcher or something like that, like they have to be really good. You're not going to see very many players up the middle, shortstop, catcher, those type of positions at the college level who are not very, very good from a defensive standpoint. So even if that means that their bat is a little bit behind, I think by and large, most college coaches would rather have that than have the defense be a liability, because it's going to cost you a lot more runs if they're a liability from a defensive standpoint versus having a really good bat, because it's going to put a lot of pressure on the bat. And you don't always know how a player is going to hit at the next level. But for the most part, it's a lot easier to evaluate if their defense is going to translate to that next level. And even especially from a catching standpoint too. I mean, it's hard to be able to go into a program as a freshman and start from a catching standpoint. But if you can show that, hey, you can handle a staff, you know what you're doing behind the plate, you're a good teammate, you call a good game, things like that. Maybe I shouldn't say that, call a good game, because a lot of coaches call games, but you get the point I'm trying to make. So those positions are just they're top tier. And then lastly is going to be the corner players, and usually they're going to go last because, I mean, let's face it, it's harder to evaluate them, because if they don't hit, then they don't necessarily provide a ton of value. The only outlier I would say would be third baseman, because third base is very hard defensively. It's very hard to play that defensively. So if there's a third baseman out there who's really good defensively, like he's going to be probably more sought after. And when I say sought after too, I'm also talking about scholarship money as well, like how much scholarship money they're going to give you. They may give a corner outfielder less scholarship money than they will someone who plays a premier position, because for one, more people could potentially play corner outfield. You could take that shortstop and throw him in the corner outfield. You can't take a corner outfielder and then throw him as a shortstop at the next level. So that versatility piece is so important. But at the end of the day, it comes down to the bat for those corner players. And that's the hardest thing to do, is to evaluate and to project the bat from high school to college. There's so many There's so many nuances that go to it. It's the hardest scouting is the hardest thing to do, and scouting high school hitters is extremely difficult, especially when you can't, from a coach's standpoint, you don't have the ability to go and just watch tons and tons of game. And the game you do watch of a high school player, it may not be against great competition. You may see at times where you're a better hitter than maybe a shortstop who's getting looked at, and you're wondering why. Well, because they're more highly sought after right now. It doesn't mean that you're not a better hitter, but that's why at times you'll see coaches will go after maybe a left-handed hitting shortstop or a catcher, and try to get that commit first versus that corner outfielder who they know might be there further along. And as I said before, there's so many things that then so many variables that go into this recruiting process. So it's not to say that you, if you're a corner outfielder or a corner player, won't get an offer before a shortstop. I'm just trying to explain and the differences between the value of different positions and how it's viewed from a college coach's standpoint. So to wrap this thing up, I would say play multiple positions. At some point, you are who you are. But if you can showcase, hey, I can play shortstop and I can play a really good shortstop, and then I could also play second base too, and play multiple positions, I think you're going to have some more value, especially if you can be even a dual guy, where it's like, oh, you can get on the mound and throw, and then also play a good position from a defensive standpoint. I think the big thing is defensively. It's defense is very overlooked because hitting is so much more fun and always working on your swing and things like that. But you have to work on your defense. You need to be able to show that you're not going to be a liability from a defensive standpoint. If you need help in your own personal recruiting process, if you need help understanding what camps to go to, and maybe even just have someone reach out to college coaches on your behalf, I have a college baseball recruiting service myself. So if you're someone who is interested in potentially working with me, I have a 30-minute consultation where you can just ask any questions at all. We can get to know each other, see if we'd be a good fit to work together. You can head to patrickjonesbaseball.com/recruiting to book that, or scan the QR code on the screen. Hope you enjoyed this video and looking forward to the next one.